This is Mxnzplain. My name is Lebogang.
I'm Kabelo and the two of us decided to begin this journey of just creating spaces for men to reflect on what it means to be a man in the 21st century. Our task is really to journey with men, listen to different stories, but to create an environment where we can all just learn and grow with each other. It's a journey.
Yep. So if you're interested in mansplaining about their spirituality, their traumas, and all things important about being a man in the 21st century, it's the place for you to come to.
Mxnzplain is for me, for you, it's for all of us. So join in and be part of our journey.
Lebogang with my brother Kabelo and today, as always, this is Mxnzplain. We're here to talk about stuff, things, important topics that impact men's lives, to get us to talk a little bit more with each other, to have a space where we address kind of important topics in our lives, and to build a culture of conversation, and then beyond conversation, it's like actually actioning some of the things that we've spoken about, so that we can create a better life for ourselves individually, but also for our communities and for our nation at large.
Yeah, and I think today is a very interesting conversation, right? So we've invited one of our friends, but he's an individual who, I guess, made some risky decisions. And we just wanted him to really share about what that meant for him. So really the conversation for today is, you know, making tough decisions and switching from what the world considers stability and venturing into the unknown. So today in studio with us, we have Mr. Mark Modimola, who is an artist. I mean, he's done some exceptional work. He was part of the Latitudes R&B exhibition just recently, but he's done some exceptional stuff. And I think I don't want to go on too much about it, because the whole point of this conversation is for him to just take us through, how did you get here, brother? So really just introduce yourself and just share a bit about how did you get here.
Cool. Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's wonderful to be here, and absolutely a pleasure to be able to share my experiences. I hope what I have to say maybe can help a few people who see themselves having to make decisions where they have to choose between going with the grain or going against it. And so the way I got to where I am right now, which is on the journey of life, is by, first of all, becoming conscious to where I am. So my name is Mark Modimola, and I'm a visual artist. I was born in Pretoria, and now I'm in Johannesburg with you gents. And for me to get to this point right now, I'll just say that it's been a case of using opportunities and recognizing them. Taking a few cold showers and, you know, making the most of a difficult situation. And then also falling when you get up and climbing higher than the competition.
Okay.
So what's your background, Mark? What did you do before the visual artist work that you do now full time? Right? Yeah. What did you do before that?
So before I started working as a visual artist, I was actually working as a designer.
Okay.
Yeah, I was working at a design agency called Shift Joe Public.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I worked in branding.
Police.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Lisa was actually my creative director.
Oh, okay. Dope.
Yeah,
okay.
he's a really cool guy.
A cool guy, right?
And we had a few interactions, worked on some campaigns
together.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Exceptional design agency.
Nice. Okay. And the switch, like what led you to go from, hey, you would probably be able to lean into your gift more as a independent entrepreneurial visual artist as opposed to working in the corporate space? Like what led to that, and how did you actually make the decision?
I think that was a series of decisions that kind of came together.
Yeah.
It was an interesting week, I can tell you.
Okay.
Handing in my resignation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was a very difficult decision to make, as you guys have me here for that reason.
Right.
At the time, I was part of an amazing team of designers and creative director and a managing director. And we had scooped up a few, I think, top South African brands. We were working with Anglo-American Clover Milk, not just to name a few.
Yeah.
And the journey so far had been so interesting. I had just finished university and come straight into working at the agency.
Right.
And had started taking on much more responsibilities. Not only doing branding work, but also consulting on strategic things,
Right.
and doing some art direction, even venturing into voiceover work.
Okay.
And so at the time, my team had won a few awards.
Right.
Our senior designer had actually won Young Designer of the Year.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, and so our
So
studio
you
was
were
hot.
flying.
So
Look,
you
we were
left.
hot.
You left like when, as you were rising, right? And you're just like, I don't want this paycheck anymore. I'm out.
Well, look, there was a point where I had been doing some stuff on the side,
Okay.
and ended up making maybe 2 or 3 times my paycheck,
Right.
which enabled me for a few good months to take a step back and look at things. And that actually started the process of enabling me to make my exit
Right.
and prepare into the next venture.
Okay.
So the studio was like fire hot, man. It was crazy.
Yeah,
Everyone
sounds
there
like you
was
guys
kind of
were
walking.
moving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool. It was cool. It was going
Yeah.
to a good place.
Yeah.
I had actually just, I was telling you, Kabelo, I'd just gotten a trip to Amsterdam with one of the other designers. And at the time, our senior designer got up and I think she had received an offer from another agency. And
Yeah.
she got up and she handed in her resignation. And the designer next to me had done the same. And I don't know what happened that week, but I went up after her. Maybe I went up after lunch and handed in my resignation.
On the same day.
It might have been on the same day.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. Look, we kind of had to use the opportunities that were coming and look at the situation. I think at the time the studio was also transitioning.
Yeah.
As well as it was doing, I think a whole lot of things were changing in the underground. In my own life, I had actually received a few opportunities to lecture.
Okay.
And so that, I can say, conscientized me into a little bit of my ability, a little bit more of my ability. So, cool, the studio was doing well. And in terms of my own career, I was doing, well. One of the young, only black designer in the team.
Yeah.
And we were doing very well.
Yeah.
And so before I'd actually gone full-time into working in the design studio, I was doing some, I wouldn't say part-time lecturing, but doing some workshops, running workshops at the university.
Right. Which university?
The University of Pretoria.
At
That's
Pretoria.
where I
UP.
studied.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Tux. That's a good choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Thank you
my
so
home. That's my home too.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Where did you go? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But so I had been invited by the faculty to actually come back and give a few workshops and run some classes. I recognized at the time that in my class, actually the course that we were doing was not giving us the technical skills we needed to compete with other design schools.
Right.
And so I'd raised that with my lecturers, and they were of the opinion that if I saw a gap, I should fill that gap.
Okay.
And so they gave me a class in the afternoon, and I had my fellow classmates come in,
nice.
and I coerced them to sit in for a class that I
Nice.
gave. And I gave them a design, what was a digital painting class.
Okay.
And I did another one, and when I finished university, they invited me to do actually a full class for a second year class.
Okay.
So yeah, did a few classes, and I was invited again, and it got to a point where the university was quite interested in actually hiring me.
Oh, wow.
And so I brought that up with my design team, and obviously it was a bit tense, seeing as how well we were doing and the accounts we had. So it was a bit difficult to manage the time, and it was a bit.
And you'd wanted to do both at the time, huh?
Yeah,
At the same time, like simultaneously, yeah.
And particularly for the reason that I had gained maybe a year or two of work experience, and I was able to share some insights with the students.
Yeah.
But it also kind of gave me the platform to realize that sharing what we know was also part of the process, you know.
Okay.
We were trained at such a level at that course that we were among a handful of people who could actually do the craft, but also think around it, come up with conceptual problem-solving skills that could help the industry and also help university students.
Okay.
So at the time, lecturing and giving back made sense.
Okay.
So yeah, there was a bit of conflict in terms of managing that. So I ended up leaving the design studio and lecturing for a bit. So that was the big
That was tough, huh?
change for me, yeah.
Okay.
It was tough. It was tough just going back to school. Being back on campus was a little bit difficult, and trying to listen to each student, you know, and actually give them attention. And I think I made a terrible lecturer, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I didn't enjoy the criticizing process, the marking process.
Okay.
I was actually, I think, like quite bad. I gave everyone good marks. I thought people applied themselves, so I thought, well, look.
So everyone got an A. You were like at the Oprah
There were
of
like
text.
D's and maybe there was like 1, 2 D's. You know?
Okay.
But everyone was doing well, and I ended up realizing that, okay, cool, you know what? I don't maybe like the, how can we say, the way that we critique students. Because again, I'd found that what I'd seen outside in the industry again was showing me particular things that the pedagogic aims of the university maybe were not
making sense.
aligning with.
Yeah.
And so how I was marking people was based on how they would engage with the content and how it would live in the real world.
Okay.
But the aims of the university obviously were a bit different.
Right.
So it was a little bit difficult, like just trying to find my feet with how do we share information that we know.
Yeah.
So I lectured, but I was also invited into some other corporate design studios to do workshops.
Right.
And eventually invited to do some drawing classes on some other platforms.
Okay.
And that went on for a few months, but then I had to, you know, decide what I was actually going to do. Was I going to take a job as a teacher? And my the top lecturer at the design course I was in had actually offered me her position, like behind closed doors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a bit of a lot.
Huh?
Yeah, it was a bit of a lot because I was like in my 20s and I didn't know anything, man. Like, I learned a few things last year that I didn't know back then. So I told her that I was a bit anxious to take on such a big responsibility because as passionate as I was, I still felt like I didn't know enough in terms of experience. It was just observational things and then applying like predictions. You know, if you could almost forecast how things would go.
Yeah.
And so in that instance, I guess I was a good candidate, but it was still too soon.
Okay.
So I ended up applying for a Fulbright scholarship to try and, you know, learn a bit more, but also apply myself. I got accepted into the program and had to study maths. Man, it was...
What does maths have to do with art?
Bro. Well, it ended up being that this is a scholarly program. It's an academic program. And so for you to get into the program, you had to do an English component, but also prove yourself academically. So there was an entire academic component that included an entire math exam, a university level math exam.
Yeah.
And I was the kid.
Did you get through it?
Let me tell you the story. So I was the only, I remember this very clearly. In high school, I was the only person in my class who decided not to go to the math class.
Okay.
And I had the higher maths, not the squirrel maths.
Yeah.
But I remember going to my math teacher and telling her, look, so I've decided I'm going to be an artist. And so I'm not going to come to your class. I'll be in the art class when it's math period.
Yeah.
But I will write your tests and I'll pass.
Yeah.
Do we have a deal? And she said, you take your life into your own hands, young man.
Yeah.
She shook my hand and I passed math in high school.
Wow.
I passed.
Without going to the classes?
I didn't go to a single class.
Okay.
I was in the art class.
All right.
I just studied my butt off. And it came back, you know, to punish me when I had to do the Fulbright. Because I'd been doing it independently, but yeah, I studied really hard and I ended up passing, right? I passed my Fulbright exam. That math exam was so difficult.
Yeah.
Man, it was difficult. But I passed. I passed all of those things, but unfortunately, at the time, they didn't choose, I guess, the cohort I was in that were in the humanities.
Right.
They ended up choosing people in the sciences and stuff, business and whatnot. We can blame Donald Trump and whatever, but I can still say I passed my Fulbright.
Nice.
But I ended up not getting chosen for that. And decided to just take a break, went to travel for a little bit, for a few months. And when I came back into the country, I started painting, like just drawing from dreams and experiences that I kind of had in the background of my design work, and the few months I'd taken off and started processing things. And it was trash in the beginning. It was like so bad. Like literally I took all my stuff, went back to my parents' place, put it all there. And I'd been living in Joburg while working at the design agency, right?
Yeah.
Independent, had my own place, all my independence, and kind of had to give that up and start over. And it literally started from realizing that I had no foundation in fine art. And yet I was drawn to paint. So what I mean is I don't know how to use paint.
Right.
Okay.
I kind of know how to hold a paintbrush.
Yeah.
But in my design course, they never taught us any of these things. They just taught us how to think.
Right.
Right. And how to think critically. So I took a few months and tried to teach myself
How to paint.
Yeah, how to draw, how to paint, and how to make it attractive to a market.
Right.
Okay.
These are things I learned, through trial and fire over like a course of a year. And we have social media on top of that you have to like be cool on.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult in the beginning. Yeah.
So what I'm also interested in, right, is in all of these things. And I said to you, everything we do in this show always links back to how did this impact your manhood, right? Or bunna bahao, right? Or your masculinity. Because I mean, with all these things happening around you, there were probably emotions, feelings, anxiety, points of having to redefine what being a man now looks like within the space of, I used to have a 9 to 5 that paid and gave me a full salary, and now I'm a starving artist, right? What was the emotional and I guess psychological journey for you in those times?
It was extremely challenging. I realized, so I sometimes do this thing where I'll disassociate, right? And it's a component I think I also learned in terms of design, where you separate yourself from the issue and then you can think around it. Otherwise, you're too involved.
Okay.
Right? So I kind of disassociate and look at myself outside of me as trying to start over with my career. And I look at, well, what was the problem and where are you going? And I realized my issue with my design job and the level that we were creating at, and the entire industry as it lived, or as I existed in it, was that our position as black creatives was being manipulated. Our image as black people was being manipulated. Our presence, energy, soul, existence, as black people was being just used by the industry, coerced out of us,
Okay.
It was in advertising, for example. We use fancy words to draw people to a product, and that's what had been practiced by the government, society, all of these structures on us as black people and as creatives.
Yeah.
And so I had to sit with myself and kind of unpack that in terms of like what I know, my skill level, and where I'm going, and what I'm going to do with what I know. Which was not too much.
Yeah.
Even if I thought I knew
A lot.
No, I've never thought I knew much. But recognizing that with what I know, I have to do something.
Yeah.
And I've never aimed to be famous on top of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I've just tried to be useful.
Yeah.
So there was that component. But then there's also trying to negotiate this with family and friends and your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. You've adapted to a lifestyle of independence.
Yeah.
You might be used to getting a paycheck every month, and those things change. Those things are naturally going to change in life. But for me, I think it was a little bit easier to let go of those things. I can call them material things, stability. For a period, because I had to create a plan, right? And without a plan, I was going to stay stuck wherever I am, whether I'm doing well or I'm not doing anything. I was just going to get stuck.
Yeah.
So I had to sit down and really think about what don't I like about painting?
Yeah.
What don't I like about the industry of painting? What don't I like about, everything I'm doing? And where can I fit in? And then just go and sit with my parents, sit with my friends and talk to them. There were so many conversations, kind of like we're having now, where I had gained a little bit of respect for my parents, a little bit of understanding, because being a creative, a black creative, it's very difficult, especially having black parents. I'm sure you can understand.
Say more about that though.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit. Let's take 5 minutes to talk about how it's very difficult for parents who come from apartheid and being black and being not even black middle class. My parents are civil employees.
Yeah.
My mother's a nurse and my father was a police officer.
Yeah.
And them seeing me reach a level of stability that my family hasn't reached. I went to university, I think. I was like maybe the first.
Yeah.
My parents had done diplomas.
Yeah.
So they showed me how, but I got a degree. So now here I am. I have a little brother who's looking up to me as well. And, the rest of my family. I mean, my mom's got sisters and they got kids. And everyone's kind of looking at me like...
Yeah.
And so now people obviously have connotations as to how you're existing in the world based on whether you have a job or not. I think we're in a country where there's 8 million people who are unemployed, and we know the responsibilities of a black man in this country.
Yeah.
If you're not providing, no one's looking at you, and if you're not useful, you're useless. We look at you as a nuisance. You have to be useful. And so I think it was also easy on my own psyche, understanding usefulness and actually understanding my own use versus understanding my ability to attain resources. So that didn't hurt me too much in terms of my pride and all that, because again, I didn't know much. I didn't have too much to stand on to begin with. I just come from a design agency where we done well.
Yeah. And
that was good to put on my CV, but it hadn't really built something in me where I have pride.
Yeah.
All it did was really conscientize me. Right. So I understand what I can do. So explaining that to my parents was something of a process, like I said.
How was that conversation? Can you take us inside that conversation with your parents? Like, what are some of the things, without giving away too much sensitive information? Like, what are some of the things they said, you said, and how did you navigate that?
Specifically your dad, because I believe you have a very close relationship with your dad, right?
Yeah,
from the conversations that we've had.
He's my guy.
What did that sound like when you guys were in there?
We have to, like, in our culture, again, it's like traditional black culture. It's difficult to look at your elder in the eye.
Yes.
Right? So now there are moments where we have to sit down and I have to look him in the eye because I'm a grown up now. I'm not like a child who's struggling.
Yeah.
And at this time, I'm exhibiting. I'm starting to exhibit. I'm starting to get attention from some clients off of work I'm posting and work I'm doing. So I'm generating income. I'm just working for myself and I'm working from home. And it doesn't look glamorous. I'm kind of just waking up, working out, and sitting at a desk and taking walks and painting.
Yeah.
And so my dad will go to work. I'm staying. It's just him and I. My brother's at university and my mom's working. So he'd come back.
So you moved
work.
back home, right?
I'd moved back.
Point.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Right.
So I'd be at home like most of the day, and my dad I'd wake up at the same time as him. You know, he'd raise me to wake up at like 6 or 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So I wake up. When he wakes up, we watch the news.
Yeah.
Make coffee for him.
Yeah.
Cheers, bro.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
He goes to work. He comes back, and I'm still there. And this happens for a few months, and he's like, "Are you So one night he's like, son, come sit with me. Let's watch a game.
Yeah.
At night, my dad watches, like, as all parents, he watches his DSTV. He's gonna watch the game.
Yeah.
The game meaning soccer.
Yeah.
I don't watch soccer, man.
Me and you are the same. I have no time. I fall asleep.
I don't want to fall asleep, but I have like, I'm an artist and I'm like effeminate in many ways, and I already have like a very thin black card, right? In terms of, and my man card's also quite thin because I'm not like out there every night doing the, bro, cheersing. I don't drink a lot. I'm not like out in the streets. I don't talk loud. I don't fight a lot. So it's like, it's risky where I play. Right. I have to like Google who won the game before I talk to guys, because already I'm like painting, I'm vegetarian, I'm like, this guy's throwing us away.
And the odds.
It's weird.
There's too many things that are not manly, right?
There are too many things that are not manly with me, man.
Yeah.
So now my dad's like, this guy, how are we gonna deal with this guy? Come sit down with me and watch the game. So I support Liverpool with my dad. So we're sitting down and watching the game. Liverpool's doing well. Like, it has been so long since Liverpool's done well. It was that season. It's doing well. We're watching the game. We scored. Now he's celebrating and we're laughing. And as he laughs, he's like, so how's things going? And I'm like, man, things are going so well. He's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, so Dad, it's been so crazy. I have an offer in my email from the university. They want me to take a job with them. The lady at the receptionist at the university, she'll even call me in for some tea and be like, so have they offered you the job yet? Because they all kind of sit and they talk amongst themselves about how they enjoy me being there with them, teaching, because I'm the youngest and I've just come from the industry. So I have some insights the older faculty members don't have.
Yeah.
So he's like, so they like you where you work? I'm like, yeah, like me where I work. I'm contributing. I have students coming to me and thanking me. And he's like, what? And he sits up and he's like, so what do you do there at the university? And I'm like, man, look, I take the students through ideas, and I take them through building an idea from a drawing or something that flashes in your brain to putting it down into something we can all see. And then you develop it and you flesh it out from something rough and something that's in the air, something that could be, into something that looks like a prototype that you can hold. And then it eventually becomes something finished, and their parents come and they look at it and they congratulate them. And my dad's like, what? That's cool, man. And I'm like, yeah. And I just got an email from some guy. He wants me to do like some fashion show with him, like redesign some stuff. And some lady just asked me to do an interview. I don't know what's going on, but I think these people are enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's cool, man. And I'm like, yeah, I think it is cool. So we kind of sat there, and I saw him processing it.
Yeah.
He doesn't get what I do.
Yeah.
Like, throughout my whole university career, they came to my shows, they saw the things we were doing, but they're black parents.
They don't get it.
They don't understand art. Like,
Quattro, I mean.
Quattro. And Mopatel.
Patala for the drawing.
Zaga.
And
he didn't understand. Even when I was at Joe Public, he just didn't get it.
Yeah.
Sure.
He'd see some ads or some stuff I'd done, and I'd actually been in some commercials from some previous performance athletic stuff I'd done. And even then, he'd see me on TV, and only when they see you, they make the connection of, that's my son. You're on TV, you're popular.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not doing this to be popular.
Yeah.
I'm informing people. And so even, man, it's taken a few years. They really support what I do, and they respect it because they've seen a few things I've done.
Okay.
But it takes them seeing people responding to me. Their friends telling them, I saw your son's work.
Okay, yeah.
And then they go, yeah, that's my son.
Yeah.
He paints. So every morning now, my mom will send me a WhatsApp message with, birds and some blue, because she knows that's what I paint with. And that's as far as she understands. She understands he likes nature. She understands Mark enjoys nature and he likes birds.
Yeah.
But they support what I do. So it's very difficult to bring them on the journey. They understand a bit more of the art world. Yeah. but
Okay.
it's been a journey.
It's been tough.
Yeah, you kind of have to grow with them, and they have to grow with you.
How has the switch affected your social social relationship setting, friends, girlfriends, and the kind of masculine part of how you show up in those settings? Has that been affected at all by those changes you've made?
Yeah, I didn't get the bill for like a few weeks.
Okay, so that's a bit supportive.
Yeah. I was like not going out a lot.
Yeah.
But in any case, I've never been popular.
Okay.
I've always been like awkward.
You keep to yourself kind of guy.
I'm an introvert, and I enjoy reflecting.
Right.
And I also, in terms of company, I enjoy sitting down with people and hearing myself.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy loud music or clubbing. Maybe like when I was younger.
Yeah.
Younger as in like 20s.
Yeah.
But it's not really something that has affected me so much. So I'd say social media has been the biggest impact.
Okay.
Because now that I've started working for myself, my friends will see me less. Right. Because instead of working a 9 to 5, I work a 5 to a 10.
Yeah.
Because I'm handling everything.
Yeah.
And so instead of my friends seeing me every weekend, they might see me once a month.
Yeah.
And when they see me, mostly it's on social media, showing the work I do. And so in terms of dynamics, it's become difficult as well. And I don't know, it's a double-edged sword with all of these things that you've even asked me as well, Kabelo. It's a double-edged sword where you sit down and you, based on like a plan or strategy, you're isolating yourself from the greater world, from society, from your peers, in order to work on your own project.
Yeah.
And even in relationships, you know, when I was with a partner, I'd have to take a lot of time to isolate myself in order to firstly work on client projects, but also plan for the future, and then reflect, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
And so people get angry with you because you're not available.
You're not around. Yeah.
You can't be available.
Yeah.
You're very much focusing on your own things, and so people think either you're selfish or you're just not involved. But on the plus, there are a lot of people you discover who are incredibly supportive, who they just come and they support you. Like my parents, for example, who they've never understood fully what I do, but they've always respected and loved that I do it so passionately.
Sure.
And they've always been there for me.
Yeah.
And same with my friends. I have a friend who we've been friends since the 2nd grade, and he's always been there, you know, like no matter what.
Yeah.
And maybe there were times where nobody knew what I was doing or where I was going, but he was always there with me.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you find that relationship is important for you?
All my friends and all my relationships and my family are extremely important.
Okay.
Because I'm such a particular person and I'm so busy with my craft. When I do bring myself into relationships, into my friends, I'm very particular and very loving. And I also hold very closely onto my friends. So the friends I do have, they're minuscule, but they're, you know, it's very strong relationships. Yeah, less is more.
Okay.
With those things.
Perfect.
So I think there's a part of me that's just like, I have so many questions, but we can always have you back on the show, right? Because I think there's a lot that I believe we can explore, specifically in terms of just how, you know, masculinity is expressed in the work that you do. Because I mean, some of the works that I've seen, you know, there's elements of men within the images and how you've portrayed those men, and I think there's something about that I'm keen to just hear a bit about, and just how you have presented masculinity in your work.
Man, it's such. Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
I realize I'm here to answer all of that, and I'm here talking about my background and the pain of.
No,
that's important, though. That's important. Yeah.
Look, the struggle of building yourself and not relying on others is extremely important in what I've done.
Okay.
And it's been very affirming for my manhood, because I realized that I've been able to make myself secure and comfortable.
Yeah.
At an early age. And then I walked away from that in order to solidify that in the future. I think for myself, I'll say I played a long game in terms of planning to gain independence and retain my independence at this age and in the future instead of giving it up at an early age.
Right.
And to what you just asked me, when I did that, it conscientized me into my position and the position of the people I represent.
Okay.
So you've noticed that I paint women and I paint men in a particular way.
Yes.
Where that comes from is how I see women. Like, I'm a heterosexual man who has been many times confused to be homosexual. You know, I remember even my dad at some point came to me and said, "Hey man, so how do you see yourself? Are you gay? Or do you like women?" And
We relate on so many things.
yeah, man. Man, it's difficult to be pretty.
Wow.
It's difficult to manage how you look
Yeah.
versus how you present versus how you exist.
Yeah.
And so I've also made it a huge thing where I don't focus on how I look in my work and how I present myself in social media. You'll look on my social media, I hardly post myself unless I have to for work.
Yeah.
But how I see myself and how I see women, being a lover of women and heterosexual, I realize, cool, I love women and I'm attracted to women, but I also represent the largest group that abuse and destroy women. And so how we see women as men is historically toxic. It's been aggressive and violent.
Yeah.
And so with one of my first works that I actually put out that ended up getting used for my 2020 Design and Daba Emerging Creatives exhibition was called Ripe, the Veneration. And it's a painting of a woman who, she's looking away from the viewer, but kind of looking over her shoulder to look back at the viewer. And she's bare. Her back is bare and she's wearing a white cloth. And she's immersed in nature. And the colors are quite vibrant, but they're also quite different at the time. And so the painting kind of, for me, is the starting point from how I look at the figure, human figure, male and female, and how I approach masculinity, but also how I approach how we see ourselves and how we represent ourselves. So it has to do with androgyny. And androgyny, again, has to do with being on both sides, where you have the ability to be male or female. And that conscientizes you again, brings you to the understanding of what the other feels, what the other goes through. Women want us to see them in a positive way. Fine, they want us to be attracted to them sexually, and in all types of way, but they also want us to respect them and not kill them.
Yeah.
And so when we are attracted to them, we have to negotiate that. And so the work, it urges us to do that. And the colors build memory and inspire you to look at things differently. And so my work looks the way it does because it's meant to pull you into a different way of looking at things. So the men that I paint are mostly quite, sometimes effeminate, sometimes androgynous, sometimes they're very strong. And it is questioning masculinity and how we see ourselves as black men.
Yeah.
Not physically, but let me say naturally.
Okay.
Right. In terms of nature, we have to be conscious that masculinity is performed, right? It's a performance.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it's not real. Like it's a
Act.
we play act. Like I have to be tough.
Yeah.
I have to be tough so you take me seriously.
Yeah.
I have to be strong so that you listen to me. You know, so that I have some kind of power over you. And so when I'm speaking to you in the way that I do, quietly, slowly, but assuredly, I can still get the same effect. And my paintings have to bring that across, where I don't have to perform the desired way masculinity has presented itself, the violent, sometimes toxic for us, violent for us, has presented itself, but also look at it in a way where pink is not gay or seen as dangerous for men. Blue is not seen as safe for men. It's seen as mysterious. My blues are mysterious. You know, I use the color blue to dive into our psychology, into the subconscious into the source.
Yeah.
It speaks to nature, but also the nature that we exhibit. So again, my female figures, they question how we see them, you know. They're sometimes very, how can I say, pure.
Yeah.
They appear very pure, very ephemeral, divine in ways. And that forces you to respect them. It forces you to look at them from a higher mode of consciousness. And so my work in the end, it asks us as Africans to look at ourselves in a more natural way, based on natural elements, but also based on how we present, how we interact with each other and the world, our psychology, how we, the three of us, can sit here and none of us are trying to be an alpha male.
Yeah.
We can all just ask each other, hey, how are you feeling? Or how did that make you feel? And my work allows space for that, you know. And it's taken me a while, and it's taken me the risks and some of the journeys and the hardships in order to find the right tone to present with my work, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to ask you how you got to the point where you actually where you can articulate it in the way you've just done, that this is what I want my work to do. And it sounds like it's a deliberate attempt to helping us as people, men and women, in particular black men and women, in changing the ways in which we see each other, which is actually the very same thing that we're trying to do here as it comes to men, right? So that's amazing, man. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. It is, it's that. Thank you.
Okay. Where can people find your work, bro? Like if they're looking for you?
Instagram is the easiest way, under Mark Modimola.
Okay.
Latitudes currently has an exhibition that's been finishing up that I took part in with RMB,
Nice.
showing under Usurper Africa.
Nice.
So my work is available with Usurper Africa, and I'm releasing a luxury set of playing cards with a partner of mine.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, they're based on African culture, called Zuriwatu. So
Okay.
you can see that project under zuriwatu.com and Zuriwatu on Instagram. Zuriwatu is a Kiswahili term that means beautiful people.
Oh, nice.
And so it harnesses our history of rich African culture and royalty. And it's an offering, you know, and it's an ongoing project. It'll be released in time. But I've got a few more exhibitions coming up that people can keep up to date on my social media.
Cool. Okay. This has been good.
Yeah. And I think for me, just one last thing, right? Just literally two lines. What do you say to that gentle brother, that young boy who is not into soccer, who is not masculine, but is a real G, right? What would you say to that little boy trying to navigate how to redefine themselves in the context of the 21st century and everything that the wars and the noise is saying about men?
I think it's important, I would say to the young man, I think it's important to remember that we are all different, right? You not looking like someone else doesn't make you less. You not shouting doesn't make your voice less. Because you shout louder than me doesn't make my words less important. And so in your own strength, stand up straight and do your part. There's always a gap that we can operate in. And perhaps strong as might works for some people, but that's not how nature works, despite what you've seen. What works in nature is diversity, and diversity is what makes us strong. So everyone has a part to play. Being gentle is actually being strong in nature because it helps you survive. The tree that bends is the one that doesn't break. Sorry, that's more than 2 lines.
That's so, might is not always right.
That's a whole book, my man. Poetic. But yeah, Mark, thank you so much for availing yourself and just to be in conversation with us. I think we appreciate you being here. We appreciate the insights that you've just put bare, and your honesty in how you transitioned and journeyed. And yeah, so thank you for being our guest. Thank you for being part of the Mxnzplain family. We'll probably have you again at some point, because I think there's a lot more that we want to farm out of you. But yeah, re leboga, and we just hope that you continue doing your work and giving a different perspective on manhood, femininity, and just what it looks like to be human in the 21st century. So yeah, this is Mxnzplain. It is for you, it's for me, it's for all of us, and thank you for joining us. Lebo, last words?
No, this has been amazing. I think, the thing I really love, I've really enjoyed about speaking to you is that you're incredibly calm.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. And yet, at the same time, everything you've said is really powerful.
Yeah.
That's a lesson, I think, for people to take from this. It doesn't make you less masculine just because you are the calmest in the room. In fact, in the real world, as Mark has said, that's how nature works. But also, the quietest in the room are usually the ones to look out for the most. This is Mxnzplain. My name is Lebogang.
And I'm Kabelo and Lebogang. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Peace!